All right, here we are. I know this says Unit 1 Practice Test 2, but this is actually for Unit 2. I renumbered these some years ago. So let's dive into question 1. And this is the problem where you really want to look at this and notice that we've got the 9 is under both the 6 and the p. And we've also, of course, got our equal sign here. So let's draw our line down the equal sign. And since the 9 is being divided into both the 6 and the p, that means there are implied parentheses there. So we are going to do the 6 plus p. We're going to do any operations last there. So since we're dividing by 9, we are going to multiply both sides by 9 here. These 9s cancel. They become 1 when they cancel. But really all I'm left with is 6p equals 9. And my final step will be to subtract that 6 away from the p on both sides. So our final answer is p equals 3. If you substitute that back in, you will see that that answer is true, but you do not need to show that you have checked your work. This one frequently gets confused with our previous problem as to the steps you should be doing. So first off, notice that the 14 is only underneath the m. Here's our m right there. And so there's no need for the parentheses like we had in the last problem. I am going to draw my line down my equal sign. And this one, I notice that for the m, it's being divided by 13 and we're adding a -3. So the opposite is going to be to add that 3. The opposite of -3 is +3. Add that to both sides and we'll get that m divided by 14 is equal to 1. Multiply that 14 to both sides. And it looks like I get m equals 14. For number 3 here, we can locate the n, and we can see that the 4 and is being multiplied to the n, the 10 is being added. So the first thing we want to do is subtract that 10 from both sides. So notice how I line everything up. So I have 2 minus 10 is -8. And we bring down the 4n. The 10's, of course, canceled out. Final step is to divide both sides by 4. And you can see here, -2 is what equals n. Question 4 is similar to question 3, but we'll just follow those same steps every time. Draw your line down the equal sign. Subtract the 3 from both sides because we can see we're multiplying by -6, adding 3. So 1 -3 on each side. -6x equals 0. Divide both sides by -6. And you can see that I've got x equals 0. This is a common mistake. I see a lot of people dividing wrong, and lots of mistakes can happen here. Next, we're going to get into those problems where we have the variable on both sides. So do watch out for this one. We're going to draw our line down the equal sign like always, but this time you'll see that I've got an n on each side of that equal sign. You must move those together first. My recommendation is to always move the smaller one. So we're going to add the 4n to both sides so that we can get those variables together. Here I've canceled the 4n's. I've got -6 equals 8 plus 7n. now that we've got everything together, we can go ahead and subtract the 8 from both sides because that's being added to the variable term. I've got negative 14 equals 7n, and my final step is to divide by that 7. So you see I've got negative 2 equals n. Example 6 still has the variables on both sides of the equal. So when I draw my line down the middle, I've got a on the left and a on the right. When I subtract the a from each side, it actually will cancel on both sides. So I'm just left with negative 2 equals negative 1. And that is a false statement. That is not true. So for this problem, we'll stay, we have no solution. On question 7, it's asking us to write an algebraic equation using the given variable, solve showing algebraic steps. You do want to set up your equal sign. Now for this one, I would normally say you want to define your variable, but this particular problem actually has already defined it for us. It says after how many minutes m will the buckets have the same amount of water. So it's already defined the variable for us. So for this one, it says 2 buckets of water are leaking. The first bucket, A, starts with 500 milliliters of water and loses 8 milliliters per minute. So we're going to start with 500 milliliters. You don't need to write the unit. And it's losing, so that's subtracting 8 milliliters per minute. And that's going to equal what's in the second bucket, which starts with 700 milliliters of water and loses 12 milliliters per minute. And now those two equations are equal. I can draw my line down the middle here, bring those variables together. So this m and this m, we're going to set, make sure that those are both on the same side. So if the smaller one is negative 12, so add 12m. Okay, and I have 500 plus 4m equals 700. Next, subtract the 500 away from the 4m here. Notice once on each side of the equal. Then we have 4m equals 200. Divide both sides by the 4. And m equals, and it's 50 minutes. So just write min. In 50 minutes, both buckets will have the same amount of water. Question 10 gets us into those literal equations. So we want to solve each equation for the given variable. In question 10, we can see the given variable we want to solve for is x. So pretty straightforward. We just want to get this x by itself. So this guy needs to be by itself. So same steps we always use. We're going to add the 1 to both sides. So they end up with z plus 1 equals 3x. And last step to get that x by itself would be to divide by 3. Make sure you divide by everything here. And we get z plus 1 all over 3. Make sure it's all over 3 equals x. And now x is solved for. It's all by itself. For question 11, once again, we're going to solve for x. We can see the x is right here. The only thing keeping it from being by itself is the 6 divide 6 from both sides, and literally I just get x equals g over 6, or g over 6 equals x. It's really that straightforward for number 11. And for our final example, we're going to take a literal equation and use it. So the formula for calculating interest is I equals PRT, where P is the principal, the initial investment is R, and T is the time in years. So rewrite the formula to find P. So if I take that formula, I equals PRT, I'm going to divide so that I get the P by itself. So divide both sides by RT, and we can see that we have I divided by RT equals P, and that is our answer there. So we're going to take that answer that we just found to solve part B. Use your new formula to find how much money you would need to initially invest to earn, and that earn interest after 15 years at a certain interest rate. So remember that P here is the initial investment. So that's what we want to find, and we had just solved for P. Right, so we're just going to substitute everything we know in. So I've got 5,625 is your interest. So that's I. 15 years is your T. And finally, 2.5% is your interest rate, but I've gone ahead and converted that into the correct decimal value, so you don't have to. My principal then is I, which is 5,625, divided by 15 times 0.025. So you will definitely need a calculator for this part, but there will be one embedded in your test. It turns out that that principal amount needs to be $15,000. And we're done.